that I have the privilege to introduce our speaker for this morning, Reverend Steve Adkins. Reverend Adkins is an ordained minister and a Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp certified healer and medium, and has resided and studied at the Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp since 1985. Reverend Adkins is a member of the Spiritualist National Union in the UK and has demonstrated throughout the US and the UK professionally over the past 10 years. Reverend Adkins shares his ability to communicate with deceased loved ones on the other side of life and has demonstrated consistent abilities in physical healing, which is an aspect of his practice that he is particularly drawn to. Let's give a warm welcome to Reverend Steve Adkins.
Still morning. Good morning. I'm running on Red Bull and Spirit Inspiration this morning. I had late night. I moved up to Alabama recently, and my wife's really worried about the snow, the ice and snow that's coming, and not normal for that area. They don't even have snow plows or salt trucks. It snows so infrequently there. But it was about 3 inches deep the first morning I came down here a week ago. So I had to resort to chemical stimulation to get up this morning. And that's, I guess that's what you end up doing. Over 50, it's good to have a physical discipline. Over 60, it's really almost needed. And over 70, it's an absolute requirement of life that you do something to get yourself going in the mornings. Along with that, I look around the camp here. They said I've been out here since 1985, and that's true. I first lectured in this platform up here in about 1993, and it took me a little longer to get up out of the chair today than it did back then, but I managed to get up here and hopefully have something worthwhile to say. If I don't, then just raise your hand or walk out. I get the message. I'm going to speak today on the different aspects that I've seen over my life. These are my conclusions. These are my perceptions, so I'm not intending to demean or diminish anything anybody else has told you or taught you. It's just my way of getting through life with the spiritual understanding that I have. And spiritualism is pretty unique to that because their principles and their guidelines are suggested ways to live your life. And they say that because they know that over several hundred years they've proven to be true and offer very good guidance. Now when you read them, I said this in Lyceum this morning, I'm not going to repeat too much of what I said there, that what you do is you just begin to slowly embrace it, look back over your life and see how things unfolded for you. So even though I say these things happened to me, I wasn't consciously aware of spirit much of my life until after 35, when I decided to quit drinking and be a human being for a while. But the spiritual philosophy that you have will carry you through life. It will be a basis for you to sit on when you're disturbed or distraught. And how you believe about yourself and the world around you is basically your spiritual belief. Some people tend to want to be singular about it. There's 3 basic methods of development known in the world today for approaching personal and spiritual unfoldment. The first one is the independent method. That's where I myself are my only authority and nothing. I take no other suggestions, right or left. If there's a God, I don't really care. That's what the independent method is. Then you have the subjective method, where you subject yourself to a specific set of guidelines that the religious theology puts forward and don't vary right or left out of it. Now that sounds like it's pretty tough, but I know a lot of them that do vary right or left because there aren't too many of them that don't believe that their spirit loved ones can come back to them or have come back to them or in some fashion have communicated with them from the other side of life after they've passed over. And that's definitely the spiritualist philosophy. We continue after the change called death. That's one of our principles are. So if you believe that, then you know that you have an eternal life within you. You have an eternal spirit within you beyond what the conscious mind and the instincts know. And this is what meditation and spiritual philosophy tries to get you to move towards. The third type of development is called the cooperative development. That's where I, God, the people around me, and myself, they all blend together in an experience that teaches me how to guide my life. Because I can't make all the mistakes that everybody else has made. I don't have enough lifetimes to do that. You have to learn from what you see, believe a certain amount of what you read, and incorporate it into your life. The difficulty with this kind of thing is that your conscious belief system is what you process everything through first. And that tends to be dominated by emotions. It tends to be dominated by personal conclusions that are pretty inflexible at certain points. And then within all of this, there is the actual impetus of spirit. And the impetus of spirit on all living things, I mean, we've heard that God's in everybody, and we're supposed to say infinite intelligence or divine presence, because within spiritualism, we don't give somebody an idea of what God is, only that there is a God and has dominion over this world. And it's up to the individual to move towards that and have a personal experience with that, whether they believe it's the combined experience of all the people around you as a greater presence, or you believe that there's an actual spiritual presence up there guiding things. And when I said this in the Lyceum too, and Andrew Jackson Davis was asked where spirit lived at, he said in the smallest particles, between the smallest particles of existence, in a place called a field. And that in itself was quite a statement from the 1800s, because what do they call the space between proton and neutrons today? A field. So his inference was that spirit inspiration, spirit impetus exists at that level and moves you whether you agree with it or not, moves you whether you're aware of it or not. Spiritual development tries to teach you to be more in touch with that subliminal impetus that moves you forward. Now, they don't make you do things, but you still have free will. But it's kind of like, this is all of creation, and this is you running around in here. So your impression is that you have free will, but it's only within what your consciousness can see. So what happens is, with me, I got a concept and I move towards it. And I really got upset with spirit at one time when I was doing, back in the early 2000s, I was one of the only 2 or 3 teachers out here that was teaching at that time. And I was doing a lot of readings. And my mom and stepdad came to me for a reading before they went up to Philadelphia for where they had another house at. And I told my mom, it was this or that, and it wasn't that big a deal. And I brought through some interesting things for her, and my stepdad too, no big deal. Well, they get up there, and she has a stroke that paralyzes the whole right side of her body. And my stepdad was diagnosed with pancreatic inoperable cancer. And so I said, this is me, the emotional me falling out of my spirituality. If I can't use it to help my family, what good is it? And I really got ticked off about it. And I stopped doing anything out here for about 6 months, and I was living in the camp then. I just withdrew from it. But I had had a discipline of meditation before I came out here and before I knew spiritualism. It was taught to me to help control drug withdrawals by the Sikhs. It was a type of Kundalini yoga, and it helped me stop using drugs. So I had meditation in my life long before I came out here. So I kept meditating, and one morning I asked that question, and I wasn't getting any answers, no inspirations. And finally I asked, I got an answer back, and it said, mediumship and healing is not meant to have help people avoid the circumstances of their natural life. It is to help them understand it more broadly and to help you give them some sort of comfort while they're going through it. And I thought about that and I said, well, I guess that's true. So it's not meant to help people avoid the circumstances. So I got back into it and started teaching again. But during your spiritual development, that's the key. Don't ever feel like you're not being spiritual because you choose to stop doing the spiritual craft you're involved in, whether it's helping people, whether it's working with churches. You do get to a point where you just get humanly fed up with it because it just doesn't seem to be functioning. And I've gone through that a number of times in my own spiritual development. But what I do is as I accept a certain principle and prove it to be true, I keep it, whether life goes to pot or not. And that allows you to continue to help people. It allows you to still be a spiritual person, even though you're covered up in your own emotion and your own life. And that's what spiritual people do, is they're able to help even when their own life is in trauma, even when they're having difficulties. They have that impetus to want to reach a hand out. And that's the philosophy of spiritualism. It says, what's the purpose of mankind? Spiritualism's answer is it's so that you help people that are less able to help themselves that are around you. It doesn't say go out and save the world. People that are less able to help themselves, you offer a hand to help. Now that doesn't mean go out and put yourself at risk, because what happens with your instincts is you set this goal up for yourself and you start moving towards it. Your instincts and conscious mind battle with you over that because they don't like change. They don't like to have new ideas put in there that upset the apple cart, so to speak, about what they've got together, because the conscious mind and instincts like it to stay the same. They like it consistent, they like it safe, they like it known. And when you stick things in there, it revolts a lot of the time. And when it begins to realize that you are realizing that's what's happening, it gets real subtle and comes back in a different way to where it's hard to recognize the conscious mind involving itself, because it's a living being within you, this conscious mind, just like your spirit is. So when it sees you trying to bring these ideas in and it finally realizes you've figured out that it's doing that to you, it starts to come back as part of your spiritual program or your recovery program. It comes up and it'll give you the ideas like, oh, wow, look how spiritual we're getting. It tries to pick at you until you start changing it. No, that's part of my spiritual program. I'm going to quit smoking tomorrow, and then I'm going to quit. And about 2 days into that, it goes, well, why don't you quit eating sweets too? So you add in there eating sweets. I'm going to stop eating sweets. Well, how about your language? Don't you think you could clean your language up a little bit? So by Friday, you have just about had it, and you just walk away from your spiritual development. This stuff doesn't work. This is a bunch of BS, And you're going to go through that back and forth with it. But truth is truth. And what's going to happen is that existence of spirit at the atomic level within you is going to move you back into opportunities to change that mind. And again, it's up to you to change that mind, because personal responsibility is also a cornerstone of the spiritualist faith. That means you're responsible for everything you do, everything you say, every time you do or say it, regardless of why. And when you realize that, it's not like you're taking on everything that happens in the world. It's just what happens to you. Not the whole world out there, not things way beyond your reach, but what happens in your life is a matter of personal responsibility. You're where you're at by the sum total of your own decisions. And when you begin to realize those things and embrace them, it's not that pleasant, but it begins to give you a guidance to move forward with. Over the years, it's been quite a challenge for me. I've dedicated a lot of things to this organization here, and it's wonderful to see how people have taken it, because it's a spiritual endeavor out here that's promoted by volunteers They give a lot of their time, a lot of their creative energy to what goes on out here, and the expressions that you see here. You know, it's just amazing. Over the last 30 or 40 years, I've seen, you know, I started something, and today it's been taken up by other people and made so much more than it was. And that's how your spiritual life is. You start things that you don't really realize where they're going to go, and you just do it within a positive mental attitude. Like I said, I'm running on Red Bull and Spirit Inspiration, so I'm gonna get a little distracted here from time to time, because I was up last night writing a lot of this. So you have to. I don't usually refer to my notes, but I'm gonna have to now. Some of the things that you get into with your spiritual development, like I said, mine's retrospectively. And I know that part about the Spirit subliminally moving you is true. There's a vibration rate within you of Spirit. There's a vibration rate within you of the Spirit realm and spirit beings. But your own spiritual vibration is what you should look at when you're meditating if you want to become spiritually aware of yourself. Because too many times we look to see spiritual beings, we want to see angels, we want to see all the creative spirits of nature, and it just doesn't happen a lot of the time. You have to discover yourself, cause yourself to vibrate at a spiritual rate as much as possible, and that's what attracts other things of similar vibration to you. I was incarcerated for about 5 years at one point, and I had learned Kundalini Yoga in the county jail, waiting to go to my final sentence. And in there, he taught us how to control the drug withdrawals that we were going through, because back then it wasn't nice. They didn't cuddle you and give you drugs and help you out and counsel you. They threw you all in a jail cell, all the drug addicts, and hoped they didn't die or kill each other. That was their loving kindness back then. So into this arena comes this guy from the 3HO organization. He literally taught us Kundalini Yoga to control drug withdrawals, and it worked. And I took that into the 5 years that I was in a very difficult atmosphere. And in there, I kept doing it, and we had to do it for 2 hours in the morning. That was his requirement, to teach you. 2 hours every morning with chants and the yoga thing. So I was doing that, and it kind of made some of those guys in there a little concerned. They didn't know what it was. They saw me doing the breathing and the positions, and plus I was weightlifting, and I took a couple of weightlifting categories when they had competitions. So they knew that I was capable, but they just didn't know what I was capable of. So that question kept me safe, and it allowed my spirit to resonate and keep me out of most of the difficulty. Not all of it, because life on life's terms. You're around that atmosphere, you're going to have difficulties. And again, personal responsibility. You know what you did, you know why you did it, and you have to bear it out. If somebody broke into your home and you had a gun and you shot them and killed them, as a spiritual person, you would still feel very difficult about having done that, even though it was warranted, even though it was saving your life possibly. You're still, as a spiritual person, going to feel difficult about that. And that's the same way with my time in there. I feel difficult about a lot of the things that I was forced to do to survive. And as I moved out into the real world here, I immediately tossed it away and drank like a hedonist for the next 7 years about coming out. That's what they say. You take your head off when you go in, and you put that same head back on when you come out, regardless of how long it is. And it took me another 7 years and a detox center and embracing a sobriety program to be able to begin to move spiritually again. And all these programs are spiritually inspired. Arthur Ford actually developed the fourth step of that organization, a fearless searching moral inventory. And Arthur Ford's one of the most recorded modern mediums that we have. And he mentions that in one of his books, helping with that. Because that group used drugs in the beginning. They used a lot of Librium and figured out that wasn't going to work and moved over into this spiritual unfoldment. And I had that happen to me for a few moments in the detox center, and I sought that for the next several years until it finally became days at a time and weeks at a time instead of hours at a time. But you celebrate the success. You don't allow your mind to walk around and do that. My, aren't we getting holy now? You have to say, well, that's true, and I enjoy it too. That's what you say back to it. So just stay connected, stay focused on your life, and feel that spirit inspiration, that movement. Know that it's as powerful within you as it is within anybody else. And that helped me to stop being critical, so critical. You can't help but be a certain amount of critical of other people, was realizing that God is as active in their life as God is in mine. And it's not up to me to judge them or try to direct them. That's the higher spirit's purpose. I can talk to them, I can be, kind to them and encourage them like I'm doing from this platform for people that are in the middle of that. Now, you don't have to go through all that difficulty that I did, the incarceration, the drug addiction, and all the difficulties that went with that to become a spiritual person. I am just stubborn as the dickens, and I kept getting put more and more into situations. I never was going to be killed, but I definitely had some less and less choices about what to do. And that's how the spirit realm works. They keep putting you into these circumstances where you have an opportunity to move forward. And if you don't, and most of the time we seek that. That's the problem, is most people only seek spiritual awakening or spiritual vibration when they're in trauma in their life. They don't practice it as a regular thing daily in their life. They only practice it as needed for self-defense most of the time. So what you need to do is do a routine of daily personal meditation and be kind to yourself during the spiritual development, because things are going to be revealed to you that you may or may not want to see. And you just have to take it in stride with personal responsibility. You change yourself. Nobody else changes you. Circumstances in life don't change you. You're not being punished by the world because you're not making the right decisions. You have to find out where your path is, and it's different than everybody else's, a little bit different. I see a lot of people out there that I haven't seen for a while, and it's really nice because I see people I've known for 20 plus years. I'm in an organization that I've been part of for the last 30 plus years, and those are all personal decisions. It hasn't all been pleasant. There's been a lot of conflict at different times with things like that. But you always are guided by that internal impetus to where you need to be and where you feel most comfortable. So greet the opportunities. Have a discipline that you can describe to yourself. That's the key thing, because when the spirit realm works with you, they work with you through your decisions and convictions. So be aware of how you think and what you think about yourself and your relationship to the spirit realm. The infinite presence, divine presence, are just a greater consciousness of existence. However you want to form that, that's what you need to do, is come up with a describable format, a describable philosophy that you can apply and refer back to when you get emotionally distraught. And it may amend itself a little bit, because as you move towards spiritual understanding, your view broadens and it keeps moving the goalposts away from you. You never attain the goalposts of spiritual awareness because you still think you're who you are. I still think I'm the same person I was back when I was drinking and being a pure hedonist, but I act differently outward. I have a different expression that I'm responsible for. Don't get too caught up in all of the events in the world. Somebody said in the Lyceum about all the difficulty that's going on in the world today. There's always been difficulty in the world. You only pay attention to what you can affect. Otherwise, you just get distressed. You get disappointed. Pay attention. Make a difference now around your life. And I remember one of the lecturers here that was here when I first came, Reverend Donna Boer. She said that in the lecture here, And she was talking about environmental things. So I took, you know how you get these little cases of bottled water and you drink them and throw them away? Well, I started refilling them. I'd refill them 3 times, so I cut down that much on my personal plastic waste. I couldn't, that was the immediate thing I could do to help. And that's what you need to do, is find out what you can do to change things a little at a time. There's no silver bullet. There's no magic veil that just drops over you when you get to a certain level of spiritual awareness, because you still think you're who you are, no matter how spiritually aware you get, no matter how many things you're able to do, you still think you're who you are. And that's a double-edged sword. So be aware of it. Be kind to yourself during your development, and meditate at least a couple of times a week. Doesn't have to be a long one. 10 minutes. Silent contemplation is what I call it, because with the Sikhs it was 2 hours. It wasn't just a few minutes. So 10 minutes is about all you need. Find a time to sit and be quiet before the day really gets roaring, and your day will be a lot better. And I'm going to close. I always like to close with a joke. And there was this pastor, and his 2 loves in life were golf and the Word of God. So one Sunday, it just got the better of him to go play golf on Sunday, so he had his associate pastor step in. And he had to go somewhere where nobody knew him, because he was a well-known pastor of the area. So he goes way off, and he gets out there, and he's getting ready to tee up the first hole. And he's feeling a little guilty, you know. But he tees up, and a wham, 300-yard drive, makes a par. He said, wow, that's not too bad. So then he goes on, he plays a few more holes, and he's just playing a game of his life, just carrying on. And so now you go up to heaven, and God and Michael the Archangel are sitting there, and he goes, Michael the Archangel says to God, aren't you going to do something about him cheating on giving the Sunday service? God says, I got it under control. So he's watching him play more, and he gets up to the last hole, the 18th hole, and he tees up, and wham! He gets a hole-in-one. And he's just cheering and throwing his golf clubs around. And Michael looks at God and he says, I thought you said you had it under control. He says, I do. Who's he going to tell? Thank you.